ever found yourself 100 miles from base with bugger all fuel left and an acute case of range anxiety, then I'd say this video is for you. To see if I can help out, I'll demonstrate the basic fuel consumption characteristics of both helicopter and fixed-wing aircraft, and how you can get the most bang for your buck when you find yourself with very little fuel remaining.
Sierra 1-1, hold short of runway 20.
Now there aren't any calculations or mental arithmetic we need to do, because luckily all aircraft in VTOL VR anyway provide the information we need in the fuel panel. So all we need to know is how to adjust our flight profile to get the results that we need.
Sierra 1-1, tower, clear for takeoff at runway 20.
So I'll get this thing airborne and out of ground effect so we can see some clear data on our fuel consumption in the hover, mid-range speed and maximum speed. After that we'll do the same thing in a fixed-wing aircraft, and we'll go through a scenario where we're low on fuel and need to fly a long distance back to base. So I'll be doing that low fuel scenario in the FA-26, but the same principles will apply to the helicopter as well. So starting with the AH-94, and here we are in the hover. Note the high fuel consumption, a bit over 8 litres per minute. So helicopters require a lot more power to remain stationary in a hover than when they're moving forwards, which is due to the effect of translational lift. So if you're required to wait during a mission for whatever reason, and if you also need to conserve fuel, then simply hovering isn't going to be a good idea. So now we're flying at about half of the top speed achievable in the AH-94, and this has reduced our fuel consumption by nearly 50%, so the translational lift effect makes a substantial difference. So if you need to remain in the air for as long as possible, your best bet isn't to hover, but instead to keep moving and find the airspeed which gives you the lowest fuel drain value. Now if your problem isn't endurance, but instead you need to fly for a long distance on limited fuel, then you need to find the airspeed which instead gives you the longest estimated distance. So the best endurance and best range airspeeds will be different, most of the time anyway, especially without wind to consider. Now we've increased airspeed to nearly the maximum possible, and note that the fuel consumption has again increased substantially. We're still getting the benefit of translational lift, but now we're losing efficiency due to the friction and profile drag of the aircraft as it pushes through the air. So to summarise for the AH-94, use your fuel panel and some trial and error to find either your best endurance or loiter speed, or your maximum range speed. And these speeds will lie somewhere between a hover and maximum speed, but rarely at these extremes. And also just a final note, in case some people are wondering about the aerodynamic effect of the armament pylons, the effect, if any, is negligible and not related to the translational lift of the main rotor. So next up we'll have a look at fixed wing fuel performance with the FA-26B. I put myself here a long way from home with little fuel left and my current power setting and airspeed. The fuel panel calculates that I don't have enough fuel to get home. So even though I may be anxious to get back to base quickly before I run out of fuel, I need to reduce my fuel consumption. Firstly by not using afterburner, and then to slow to an airspeed which is going to give me sufficient range to make it back to base. Now in terms of fuel efficiency anyway, this is similar to rotary wing performance. If we fly too fast, then we're creating too much friction and profile drag, and if we fly too slowly, then we're creating too much induced drag. So the sweet spot will be found somewhere in the middle, and it'll depend on aircraft weight, flight altitude, etc. VTOL VR doesn't currently have wind, but if VTOL VR adds wind in later versions, then it'll have an effect on your estimated range as well. So we'll do some trial and error at various airspeeds on our transit back to base and determine best possible distance with our fuel remaining. We should also be able to find our best endurance speed and compare that with the best range speed. But for now, let's slow to 450 knots and start there. So we'll fly at each airspeed for a little while until you start seeing consistent data on the fuel panel. So we have 77 miles to fly and only 71 miles of fuel, so we'll have to do better than that. Let's try 350 knots. Let it settle. So 75 miles of fuel and 73 miles to run, so now we can make it home. We'll also note the fuel drain, 67 litres per minute. Let's see if we can improve our situation still and try a slower airspeed. Let's go for 300 knots. Plus 3 miles of fuel and a fuel drain of 57 litres per minute. Let's see what 250 knots gives us. So our fuel range is now getting worse. We're at 0 spare miles of fuel, but our fuel endurance is still getting better. It's now at 50 litres per minute. For the sake of the exercise, let's try our 200 knots as well. And again, our fuel range has worsened, and flying this slowly would mean we don't actually have enough fuel to get back home. But our endurance has still increased with 47 litres per minute currently draining. Let's quickly speed up back to 350 knots so we can still get home. So as we saw there, we could have continued slowing down to see if we could improve our fuel endurance, but it would have been pretty close to our best endurance speed there of 200 knots. And this differs from what we determined was our best range speed, which is about 300 to 350 knots. Also, I just want to point out that I'm doing this at a constant altitude and a constant weight to simplify the demo, but you'll also get some improvement if you can jettison some weight or payload, I mean not the fuel obviously, and potentially also by climbing to a higher altitude into some thinner air, but determining whether that's worthwhile is a more complex topic for another video. So that's it for fixed wing. Just use the fuel panel info page to help you determine best endurance speed or best range speed, whichever one you're after. And here endeth the lesson, but for the rest of this video, what I might do here is see if I can not only make it back to base, but also get there as fast as I can, because I'm pretty impatient. So I guess that would mean using whatever excess fuel I have to fly a bit faster, and ideally touching down with little to no fuel left. So first I'll just ditch as much weight as I can and get a bit closer before speeding up for a little while. It's looking nice. Now we can fly a bit faster. Still plenty of distance, even faster. Right, so since we'll need time to slow down before landing, we'll be at idle thrust for a few miles, so I reckon if I shortchange myself by 5 miles, we're at about 1,000 feet, I'll just make it to the runway. So we're short by about 5 miles, but we've got a lot of kinetic energy, which we'll use up when we slow down. Okay, intercepting our finals track of 019 degrees. Might remember that from the ILS videos I've done previously. Man, this is going to be close here. Still sitting at 5 miles short. Soon we'll go idle thrust and hope that we make it.
Autopilot disengaged.
Oops, definitely don't want an afterburner. Anyone else's heart racing? We're going to land short here. Let's use a few litres of fuel to give ourselves a boost. Five litres left. Damn it, I think I'm a bit fast now. Bit of air brake. One litre. Zero. Nice.
Left engine failure. Right engine failure. Left engine.
And now we just roll gracefully to the hangar. Okay, well, just while we're rolling into the hangar, thanks for watching, and hopefully you learned something, and let me know if you have any questions or comments down in the comments section, and I'll do my best to answer.
Ready to rearm and refuel.
And there we go. Didn't waste a single drop of fuel. Oh, even the battery just ran out before I could turn it off.